My bangs are so much in my eyes, but I'm not cutting anymore. I won't do it, because that's when you make mistakes. Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Once Upon a Murder. We're back, baby. I was gone for like a year. I don't really have the equipment to make videos. My computer's just getting so old. You don't want to see my setup. It's not very pretty. It's fine. I've got it. It's cool. I hope you're all safe. I hope you're all staying home. I'm quarantining alone with my cats. Already did the depression bangs, as you can see. Snip, snip, cut, cut. What better time to make a video than when you have literally all day and your friends have no excuse for not watching it. I see you. Anyway, so today's murder that I'm gonna be talking about is actually one of the very first ones that I heard about and like could not stop researching it. It's wild, it's crazy, it's a gruesome, disgusting, evil, sinister, drug-fueled rampage. It's one of my, I guess, favorite murders. It is kind of weird to say that, but it's the Tate murders. So our murder begins on August 8th, 1969 in Los Angeles, California, where famous actress Sharon Tate, who was 26 at the time, was having a dinner party and had invited a few of her friends over. Sharon Tate's husband was filming in Europe at the time, so he wasn't even home. Of these guests that Sharon Tate invited to her home was Jay Sebring, who was 35 at the time, and he was a very well-known hairdresser, really good friends with Sharon, and I think they were former lovers as well. There was also aspiring screenwriter Wojtek Frykowski. He was 32 and he was there with his girlfriend Abigail Folger, who was 25 years old, and she's actually the heiress of the Folgers coffee. Among some of the guests invited was also Steve McQueen and Quincy Jones, though neither of them were able to attend. There were 4 murderers in this case that were part of the Manson family. Charles Manson had sent over Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Linda Kasabian, and Patricia Krenwinkel to, quote, totally destroy everyone as gruesome as you can. He had been to this house before, Charles Manson himself, because he was going to get a recording contract with a man named Terry Melcher. So Terry was going to give Charles Manson a recording contract and then decided against it because his mother, who is actually Doris Day, told him that she had a really horrible feeling about this guy. And then he ended up moving out of this home. Now, whether Charles Manson knew that he wasn't there, I'm not sure. I don't think it really matters. I think he was like, go to this mansion, go to this home, and kill everyone. So yeah, he said totally destroy everyone as gruesome as possible. The 4 murderers had gotten there a little after midnight, so it was around August 9th now, and they had Tex actually climbed up the phone pole and cut the phone line so that they weren't able to call anyone. And then the 4 of them drove their car that they had come in down to the bottom of the hill so that nobody would see it. They came walking back up and they made their way onto the property by climbing an embankment. Once the 4 murderers had made it onto the property, Tex had noticed that some headlights were coming in, so he commanded the other women to lie down for a little bit in the bushes while he approached the car, where 18-year-old Stephen Parent was actually coming to visit the property caretaker who lived in the guest house of the mansion. Tex approached 18-year-old Stephen Parent in the car with a gun, and once Stephen realized what was going on, he essentially begged for his life and promised Tex that he wouldn't say anything to anyone and that he would just leave. But Tex attacked him with a knife, stabbing him in the palm of his hand, and then ended up shooting him 4 times in the chest and abdomen, where eventually he did die. Tex then ordered the women to push the car further into the driveway so that nobody would see either Stephen or the car itself. Now, not that Stephen's killing wasn't dark, but the rest of this is a doozy. This is a very gruesome murder, and I do have some photos that I found online, so it does get a little graphic. This is kind of where the nightmare really starts. Trex, that's not his name, Tex cut a hole into a window screen and was able to then open the window and climb his way into the house, where he then let in through the front door Susan Atkins and Patricia Krenwinkel, while he had commanded Linda Kasabian, I don't know if I'm saying that last name correctly, he ordered her to stay by Stephen Parent's car, and she was kind of on lookout duty. So if anybody came, she was the one who would come in and warn them. So while Tex was letting Atkins and Krenwinkel in through the front door, Frykowski was actually asleep on the living room couch, and their whispers woke him up. Can you imagine just like falling asleep peacefully like on the living room couch? Actually, I take that back. There's no such thing as falling asleep peacefully on the living room couch, or at least waking up peacefully. When you wake up on the living room couch, it's like,
oh shit, I fell asleep on the living room couch.
Right? That's not. Anyway, so Frykowski woke up, confused by their whispers. He said, "Who are you?" And Tex kicked him in the head and responded by saying, "I am the devil and I'm here to do the devil's work." After Frykowski is attacked, the women go upstairs and gather all of the other guests into the living room. Sharon Tate and Jay Sebring were tied together by a rope that Tex had brought, and they were tied around their necks. And then he had thrown the other side of the rope over one of the ceiling beams. Now, Jay Sebring started complaining to the murderers about how rough they were treating Sharon Tate because she was 8.5 months pregnant. She was gonna give birth in like 2 weeks. So Jay, was trying to fight for Sharon, kind of giving them a hard time about how she was pregnant and, maybe they didn't have to be so rough with her. And Tex shot at him, but it hadn't killed him yet. Meanwhile, Folger was taken upstairs to her bedroom to get her purse, where she pulled out $70 to give to the murderers, thinking that they wanted money, which I looked up, and at the time, $70 is like $500 now. I did not know that. Folger went and gave them money, thinking that's what they wanted, and they ended up afterwards stabbing Jay Sebring 7 times, which ultimately was the cause of his death. Frykowski was in the living room, and he had been bound by his hands with a towel, in which he was able to free himself. And then once he was free, he went and attacked Atkins, and she attacked him back by stabbing him in the legs. But Frykowski was able to kind of shove her off of him, and he made it to the front door and eventually the front porch. And while Frykowski was calling for help, Atkins was also calling for help, in which Tex heard. He came down, he grabbed Frykowski, he hit him in the head with a gun, he stabbed him, and then he shot him twice. Linda, who was standing over by Stephen's car, heard these horrific noises and decided that she didn't really want to be a part of it, or wanted it to stop. And so she went over and tried to tell them that she had heard someone coming, but it didn't really stop them. Folger was actually able to escape from Patricia and make it to the pool area, where she was able to run back around to the side of the house and almost to the front, until Patricia had caught up with her, tackled her, and stabbed her. And then Tex, seeing that Folger Abigail was outside, he came over and stabbed her 28 times. Frykowski, surprisingly enough, was still alive, was struggling to make his way across the lawn, unfortunately wasn't able to get away. Tex found Frykowski on the lawn and went over and delivered 51 stabs and 13 hits to the head that were so vicious it actually bent the barrel of the gun. Lastly, Sharon Tate, who was 8.5 months pregnant, was still in the living room with Jay's dead body and still had the rope around her neck. It was Atkins and Tex were in the living room and she was begging for her life and her baby's life. Atkins actually has this interview that was done, I think like 6 years after the murder or something like that, and I couldn't even really watch it till the end. Atkins delivered in this interview, you know, her firsthand experience and said that in that moment, as she was looking at Sharon Tate, she felt absolutely nothing for her or for her baby. It's not clear as to who stabbed Sharon Tate. It could have been Tex, it could have been Atkins, it could have been both of them. I think what most people go with is that Tex ultimately ended up stabbing Sharon Tate 16 times in the heart, the liver, and the kidney. 4 of those stabs were fatal, would have killed her. So 16 is a lot. But so is 51. So is 1, though. So there have been accounts that while she was being stabbed, Sharon Tate was calling out for her mother, and that once she was dead, they, in a very sinister act, carved what looked like an X symbol on her stomach. Before sending them, Manson said to leave some sort of sign, quote, something witchy, and they did. Before leaving, Atkins wrote on the door, on the front door, pig, in Sharon Tate's blood. It was a drug-fueled, horrific scene, and Atkins, in that interview that I had mentioned, says the only way she can really look at it is that she was an instrument that the devil was using. And they literally went on another killing spree the next day. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Once Upon a Murder. Feel free to go to my channel, subscribe, like this video, comment on other ones, watch all the other ones that I have. I really hope to be coming out with some more now that I am quarantined in my house all day. But yeah, stay safe, wash your hands, stay at home, protect yourself and protect others.